The stars looked peaceful that morning, but peace was about to die. Commander Taimin pressed his coffee cup against the cold metal of the observation deck, watching Earth's sun paint the void in shades of gold. He had no idea this would be the last quiet moment humanity would know for years. "Sir, we've got something big coming out of hyperspace," called out Lieutenant Hyojin from the communications station. Her voice carried that edge people get when they know something terrible is about to happen. Taimin set down his coffee and walked to the main display. What he saw made his blood turn cold. Ships. Massive, dark ships that looked like someone had taken nightmares and built them out of metal and hate. They were bigger than anything humans had ever constructed, bigger than the orbital stations that took decades to build. "How many?" he asked, though part of him didn't want to know. 47 capital ships, sir, and those are just the big ones. Captain So-young joined them at the tactical station, her face grim. She'd been fighting pirates and raiders for 20 years, but this was different. This was an invasion fleet. The alien ships moved with the confidence of predators who had never met prey that could fight back. They arranged themselves in a formation that spoke of experience, of countless worlds that had seen these same dark shapes blotting out their suns. "Incoming transmission," Hyojin reported. The main screen flickered, and suddenly they were face to face with something that looked like a nightmare version of a lizard that had learned to walk upright. Its eyes were cold, calculating, and completely without mercy. When it spoke, the translator made its words sound even more terrifying because of how calm they were. "Humans of this system, I am Admiral Zhou of the Zephyrian Empire. Your species has been evaluated and found suitable for integration into our domain." Taimin felt his jaw clench. Integration. Such a polite word for slavery. The alien continued. "Its reptilian features showing no emotion. You will immediately surrender all military vessels and weapons. Your governments will dissolve. Your population will be relocated to serve the Empire's needs. Those who resist will be eliminated. You have one standard day to comply." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in deadly silence. Captain So-young was the first to speak. Well, that was friendly. "Ma'am, what are your orders?" asked Sergeant Eugene from the weapons station. So-young looked around the bridge at faces that showed fear, but also something else. Something the Zephyrians probably hadn't seen much of in their conquests. Defiance. "Open a channel to the alien fleet," she ordered. "Ma'am, are you sure?" Hyojin asked. "Open it." The screen flickered back to life, showing the surprised face of Admiral Zhou. Clearly he hadn't expected a response so soon. Most species probably spent their day begging for mercy or arguing among themselves. "Have you come to surrender?" the alien asked. Captain So-young stepped forward, her voice steady and clear. "No." The word hung in the air like a challenge. The Zephyrian's head tilted slightly, as if he hadn't heard correctly. "I do not understand. You refuse the Empire's offer of integration?" "We refuse slavery," Taimin said, moving to stand beside his captain. "We refuse conquest, we refuse you." For the first time, something flickered across the alien's features. Confusion, maybe even concern. In all their conquests, no species had ever simply said no to the most powerful empire in the galaxy. "You do not comprehend what you face," Zhou said, his voice rising slightly. "The Empire has conquered 73 star systems. Billions serve us willingly." "Then they weren't asked nicely enough," So-young replied. The alien's crest flared, a sign their intelligence report said meant anger or surprise. "Oh, your military is primitive. Your technology is inferior. You cannot hope to resist." "Maybe not," admitted Taimin, "but we're going to try anyway." "This is foolishness. Your species will be extinct within a week." Captain So-young smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant smile. "Maybe, but you'll remember us." The transmission cut off, leaving the bridge crew staring at a blank screen. "Well," said Lieutenant Hyojin after a moment, "that could have gone better." "Could have gone worse too," replied Eugene. "We could have said yes." Taimin activated the ship's communication system. "All stations, this is command. Prepare for combat operations. Activate Protocol 7 on all civilian installations. And someone, get me a direct line to Earth Command, Protocol 7. Everyone on the ship knew what that meant. It was the protocol they'd hoped never to use, the one that meant there would be no surrender, no prisoners, no mercy asked or given. As the alien fleet began moving toward the outer colonies, humanity prepared to show the galaxy something it had never seen before. They prepared to show them what happened when you asked free people to kneel. The war was about to begin, and the Zephyrians had no idea what they'd just awakened. The mining station, New Busan, floated in the darkness like a metal flower, its solar collectors spread wide to catch the light from the distant star. Station Commander Jin Woo had built this place from nothing, watching it grow from a single habitat module to a thriving community of 3,000 souls. Now, he was about to destroy it all. "Sir, the alien ships are 2 hours out," reported. His communications officer, Min Ho, his voice tight with stress. The young man had a wife and baby daughter in the civilian quarters. Jin Woo could see the fear in his eyes, but also something harder: determination. Jin Woo nodded and activated the station-wide intercom. "All civilians report to evacuation pods immediately. This is not a drill. Repeat. All non-essential personnel to evacuation pods now." Through the observation windows, he could see the alien fleet approaching like a school of metal sharks. Their ships moved with the casual confidence of predators who had done this dance 1,000 times before. They expected the usual routine: a brief fight, quick surrender, then the long process of breaking another species into slavery. They were about to learn that humans didn't follow the usual routine. "Evacuation pods are launching," reported Chief Engineer Su Jin from her station. "Families are getting clear." "Good, now everyone else, you know what we're here to do." Jin Woo looked around at the 23 men and women who had volunteered to stay behind. They could have left with their families, but they chose to remain. "Anyone want to change their mind?" No shame in it. Nobody moved. Sergeant Yu Jin checked her rifle one more time. "Sir, we've rigged the mining charges throughout the asteroid tunnels. When those alien bastards try to board us, they're going to get a surprise." The first alien shuttle appeared on their sensors, moving fast and low. Through the external cameras, Jin Woo could see more shuttles following behind it, packed with Zephyrian soldiers expecting easy prey. "Here they come," whispered Minho. The shuttle slammed into the station's docking bay with enough force to shake the entire structure. Immediately, cutting torches began working on the sealed blast doors. The aliens weren't even trying to be subtle about it. "They're through the outer door," reported Yujin, watching her security monitors. 12 soldiers, maybe more behind them. Jin Woo had studied the intelligence reports on Zephyrian tactics. They expected terrified civilians, maybe a few security guards with basic weapons. What they got instead were miners who had spent their lives working with explosives and industrial equipment that could cut through solid rock. The first alien. Through the door walked straight into a mining laser that Sujin had repositioned to cover the corridor. The beam, designed to slice through asteroids, made short work of armor that had never been tested against human industrial tools. "Contact!" Yujin shouted into her radio. "They're bigger than the report said, but they bleed just fine." The battle that followed was unlike anything the Zephyrians had experienced in their 73 conquests. These weren't frightened farmers or peaceful scientists. These were people who had carved a living from raw space, who knew how to turn every tool into a weapon and every corridor into a trap. Minho had rigged the atmospheric recycling system to vent pure oxygen into the alien-controlled sections, then followed it with a spark from a damaged power conduit. The explosion took out 6 more invaders and sealed off 3 access routes, but numbers told their own story. For every alien that fell, 2 more took its place. The humans were fighting brilliantly, but they were outnumbered 20 to 1. "Sir, they've reached level 7, Yujin reported, her voice calm despite the plasma burns on her arm. "I count at least 40 more in the main corridor." Jin Woo looked at the red switch mounted on his command console. Every human installation had one, installed after the vote that had passed by the narrowest margin in Earth's democratic history. Some had called it madness. Others called it the only sane response to an insane galaxy. The switch was labeled in Korean characters that meant final answer. "Sujin, how long until they reach the reactor level?" he asked. "Maybe 10 minutes, sir." They're cutting through our barriers like they're made of paper. Through the security monitors, Jinwu could see the aliens advancing methodically through his station. They moved like professionals, like soldiers who had done this countless times before. They probably expected the humans to surrender any moment now, the way every other species had. "All stations, this is command," Jinwu announced. "It's been an honor serving with you all." He thought about his own family, safely away in the evacuation pods. His daughter, Haiwan, who had taken her first steps in the station's low gravity. His wife, Mi Young, who had helped design the hydroponic gardens that fed everyone here. The aliens had wanted to take all of that, to turn his people into slaves, to use his daughter's future to fuel their empire of conquest. "For our families," he said quietly, and flipped the switch. The nuclear charges that had been meant to break up large asteroids instead tore the station apart from the inside. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away, a brief new star that burned for exactly 17 seconds before fading to nothing. When the light faded, there was no station, no miners, and no alien boarding party, just expanding debris, and the kind of silence that makes even empty space feel lonely. The Zephyrian fleet had won their first battle against humanity, but as they stared at the wreckage, they began to understand they weren't fighting the kind of war they knew how to win. Admiral Kethvar stared at the tactical display, showing nothing but empty space where a thriving human colony should have been. This was the 7th world his forces had conquered in 3 weeks, and like the others, it was utterly worthless. The holographic projection showed debris fields, poisoned atmospheres, and the radioactive signatures of deliberately triggered meltdowns. "Explain this to me again," he hissed to his intelligence officer, a nervous creature who kept checking his data pad as if the numbers might change. "The humans call it their scorched earth doctrine, Admiral. Every world follows the same pattern. They fight until defeat is certain, then they destroy everything of value rather than let us claim it." Kethvar's tail lashed in frustration. In 73 previous conquests, his empire had never encountered anything like this. Species fought. Yes, but they fought to protect what they had built. When defeat became inevitable, they surrendered to save their cities, their people, their accumulated wealth and knowledge. Humans fought to deny their enemies any victory at all. "Show me the agricultural world again," he commanded. The display shifted to show what had once been called New Sol, a planet that should have fed his fleet for years. The Zephyrian advanced scouts had reported vast grain fields, sophisticated farming complexes, and a population of 12 million who could have served the Empire as agricultural slaves. Instead, they found scorched earth in the most literal sense. The human colonists had spent their final days systematically poisoning their own soil with industrial chemicals that would take centuries to break down. They had burned their grain stores, destroyed their processing facilities, and contaminated their water supplies with radioactive waste from their fusion reactors. But it was the civilian center recordings that truly disturbed Kethvar. He watched, again as human families gathered in their community centers, not to mourn or beg for mercy, but to activate atmospheric processes that would strip their world of breathable air. Children as young as 10 had helped their parents trigger the devices that would kill them all. The final transmission from the colony's leader, a woman named Yun Jung, still echoed in his mind. "Our children will not grow up as your slaves. Our crops will not feed your armies. Our world dies free." "What about the research facility?" Kethvar asked, though he already knew the answer would be just as infuriating. The display showed the wreckage of what intelligence had identified as humanity's most advanced scientific complex. The Guangzhou Research Center had contained 3 centuries of accumulated human knowledge, breakthrough technologies that could have advanced the Empire's capabilities by decades. Research Director Chang Ho's final message had been brief. "Our discoveries die with us. You will learn nothing from our sacrifice." The humans had triggered a cascade failure in their central data cores, erasing everything, but they hadn't stopped there. They had released experimental nanites designed to consume any remaining electronics, ensuring that even fragments of their work would be unrecoverable. "Admiral," his communications officer interrupted, "we're receiving reports from the resource extraction world." Another failure. The mining world of New Daegu had possessed rare elements essential for constructing faster-than-light drives. The humans had spent their final hours collapsing every tunnel, flooding every shaft, and detonating explosive charges that had triggered geological instability across 3 continents. Minor leader Kyung-Soo's last words had been, "Dig for it, yourselves." What frustrated Kethvar most was how methodical it all was. This wasn't panic or desperation. Every human world had prepared for this moment, had built their own destruction into their very foundations. They had voted on it, planned for it, and when the time came, they executed their plans with terrifying efficiency. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the 4th Colonial Fleet," reported his communications officer. "Admiral Vexthor is requesting immediate reinforcements." "Reinforcements? What's his situation?" The officer's expression grew worried. "Sir, he reports that 17 non-human worlds in the Kepler sector have begun copying human tactics." The words hit Kethvar like a physical blow. For a moment, he couldn't process what he'd heard. "Repeat that." "The Altarians on Kepler 442b have destroyed their weapons manufacturing facilities rather than continue producing arms for the Empire. They broadcast human resistance messages before triggering the explosions. The implications crashed over Kethvar like a cold wave. For 300 years, the Zephyrian Empire had ruled through a simple principle. Conquered species would always choose survival over freedom. They would submit, adapt, and eventually serve willingly because the alternative was death. Humans had shown the galaxy that there was another choice. They had proven that freedom was worth dying for, and more dangerously, they had shown other species how to make that choice. "How many worlds?" Kethvar asked quietly. 47 systems are reporting rebellion, sir. The conquered populations are using human-designed destruction protocols. They're calling it burning rather than bowing. The Empire's entire economic model was collapsing. They had built their civilization on tribute from conquered worlds, resources extracted from enslaved populations, and the accumulated wealth of dozens of species. But you can't extract tribute from radioactive ash, and dead slaves produce nothing. "Admiral," his tactical officer said carefully, "our supply lines are failing. The rebellious worlds aren't just refusing to produce resources, they're actively destroying anything that might be useful to us." Kethvar stared at the holographic display, showing the extent of human space. Such a small region, barely 30 systems, but somehow these primitives had managed to threaten the foundation of the greatest empire in galactic history. They hadn't won a single battle, but they were winning the war by refusing to let the Empire profit from victory. "Set course for the human home system," he commanded. "It's time to end this before it spreads further." But even as he gave the order, Kethvar wondered if it was already too late. The humans had given the galaxy something more dangerous than weapons or technology. They had given them hope. The message came through encrypted channels, bouncing between asteroid mining stations and hidden relay points before reaching the human command ship Incheon's Fury. Governor Yeon-Soo read it twice before she could believe what she was seeing. "General Dong-hyun, you need to see this," she called out, her voice carrying a mixture of amazement and hope. The grizzled general limped over to her station, his leg still healing from the Battle of New Daejeon 3 weeks ago. "What is it now? Another colony burning itself rather than surrender?" "No, sir, this is different. This is from the Altarian resistance on Kepler 442b. Dong-hyun raised an eyebrow. The Altarians had been slaves of the Zephyrian Empire for 30 years, their blue-skinned people, forced to work in weapons factories that armed the Empire's endless conquests. They were supposed to be broken, compliant, no longer capable of resistance. The message was simple but electrifying. "We watched your people choose death over slavery. Today, we chose the same. The 7th weapons complex is ash. Freedom burns. Brighter than fear." "How many died?" Dong-hyun asked quietly. 12,000 Altarian workers triggered the destruction protocols. They copied our designs exactly. Yeon-Soo's fingers trembled slightly as she scrolled through the technical details. "They studied our broadcasts, learned our methods, and built their own version of Protocol 7. Across the bridge, Communications Officer Jae-hyun looked up from his station. "Ma'am, we're getting similar reports from 17 other systems. The Kepler rebellion isn't isolated. The implications hit everyone at once. For 300 years, the Zephyrian Empire had ruled through a simple equation. Resistance meant death, but submission meant survival. Conquered species had always chosen life over freedom because the alternative seemed too terrible to contemplate. Humans had changed that equation. They had shown the galaxy that there were worse things than death and that freedom was worth any price. More importantly, they had shown other species exactly how to make that choice. "Pull up the tactical display," ordered Dong Hyun. "Show me everything." The holographic map of the galaxy flickered to life, showing Zephyrian-controlled space in ominous red. But now, scattered throughout that red, were flashing amber signals indicating rebellion, destruction, and refusal. The Vegan colonies destroyed their mining facilities rather than produce materials for Zephyrian ships, reported Jae Hyun, reading from incoming intelligence reports. They broadcast our scorched earth manual before triggering the explosions. The Rigel manufacturing worlds? Gone. The Syrian people melted down their own factories, said they'd rather starve than feed the Empire's war machine. Governor Yeon-su felt a strange mixture of pride and horror. Humanity's desperate last stand was inspiring others, but at the cost of countless lives. Every rebellious world meant millions of people choosing death over subjugation. "Ma'am, incoming transmission from the Daegu's Pride," announced the communications officer. Captain Sung-min's face appeared on the main screen, his ship's bridge visible behind him with its battle damage still being repaired. "Governor, you need to hear this. We intercepted Zephyrian military communications 20 minutes ago. What did you learn?" "Their supply lines are collapsing. The Empire's economy was built on tribute from conquered worlds, but those worlds aren't producing anything anymore. They're destroying everything, rather than let the Zephyrians benefit from their labor." The strategic implications were staggering. The Zephyrian Empire wasn't just losing battles, it was losing the foundation of its entire civilization. An empire built on exploitation couldn't survive when its victims refused to be exploited. "How many systems are in rebellion now?" asked Dong Hyun. Jae Hyun consulted his displays. "Confirmed rebellions in 63 systems, sir, and the number is growing every hour. The Zephyrians are having to garrison their own conquered worlds just to prevent complete economic collapse." But the cost was becoming clear too. Intelligence reports painted a grim picture of once thriving worlds, now reduced to radioactive wastelands. The Arcturus colonies had poisoned their own atmosphere rather than continue producing food for Zephyrian armies. The Centauri research stations had erased centuries of accumulated knowledge rather than let it serve the Empire. "Governor," came another voice from the communication station, "we're receiving a direct transmission from Earth Command." "Admiral." Taemin's weathered face appeared on screen, transmitting from the underground command center in Seoul. Behind him, Yeon-su could see the organized chaos of humanity's last military headquarters. "Governor, I have news. The Zephyrians have pulled back their advance fleets from 12 sectors to deal with rebellions. They're fighting fires across half their empire." "What does that mean for us?" Yeon-su asked. "It means we're not fighting alone anymore. Every world that burns itself rather than serve the Empire is a victory for the principle we're fighting for." "But it also means the Zephyrians are getting desperate." Dong Hyun leaned forward. "Desperate enemies make dangerous choices." "Exactly. Intelligence suggests they're massing everything they have left for a final push toward Earth. They know that. If they can break us, they might be able to stop the rebellions from spreading further." The thought was sobering. Humanity had succeeded beyond their wildest hopes in inspiring galactic resistance, but that success had backed the Empire into a corner, and cornered predators were at their most dangerous. "Admiral," Yeon-su said, "how long do we have?" "Maybe 2 weeks before they reach the outer system. But here's the thing, every day they delay, more worlds join the rebellion. The Zephyrians are running out of time and resources." As the transmission ended, the bridge fell silent. Outside the viewports, the stars looked the same as they always had, but everyone present knew the galaxy had changed forever. Humanity's refusal to surrender had lit a fire that was spreading faster than the Empire could contain it. The question now wasn't whether they could win. The question was whether anyone would be left alive to enjoy the victory. Earth had never looked more beautiful or more doomed. President Jae-hoon stood in the observation deck of the underground command center in Seoul, watching his homeworld spin peacefully in the void, while the largest invasion fleet in galactic history approached like a swarm of metal locusts. "They'll be in weapons range in 6 hours," reported Defense Minister Hee Jin, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what they faced. "Every ship the Zephyrian Empire has left. Admiral Kethvar is throwing everything at us." Through the reinforced windows, Jae-hoon could see the lights of cities that might not exist tomorrow. Seoul, Tokyo, New York, London, billions of people going about their daily lives, many of them unaware that humanity was about to make its final statement to the universe. "Any word from the evacuation fleets?" he asked. "The last civilian transports cleared the system 12 hours ago," replied General Min-soo from his position at the tactical display. "Everyone who wanted to leave has left. Everyone who stayed—" He paused. "Everyone who stayed knows what we're about to do." The numbers were staggering in their simplicity. 40 billion humans had chosen to remain on Earth rather than flee to the colony worlds. Not because they couldn't leave, but because they wouldn't. They had voted in the greatest democratic decision in human history to make Earth humanity's final answer to tyranny. "Sir, incoming transmission from the Zephyrian fleet," announced Communications Officer Dong-wook. Admiral Kethvar's reptilian features filled the main screen, but something had changed in the alien's demeanor. The casual arrogance was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like desperation. "Humans of Earth," the alien began, "I offer you one final opportunity. Surrender now, and your species will be allowed to serve the Empire. Continue this madness, and you will be extinct within hours." President Jae-hoon stepped forward, his response already prepared. "Admiral, you seem to misunderstand our situation. We're not trapped down here with you. You're trapped up there with us." Confusion flickered across the alien's features. "You speak in riddles. Your military is destroyed. Your colonies burn. You have nothing left to bargain with." "We have everything to bargain with," Jae-hoon replied calmly. "We have our freedom, and we have our choice." He gestured to General Min-soo, who activated a system that had taken 50 years to build and had never been tested at full scale. Deep beneath Earth's surface, fusion charges the size of city blocks hummed to life, connected to the planet's core by carefully drilled shafts that had been disguised as geothermal energy projects. "Do you see what we've done?" Jae-hoon asked, as the technical specifications appeared on screen. "We've turned our entire world into a weapon. If we activate this system, Earth doesn't just die, it takes half the solar system with it." Kethvar's eyes widened as his technicians analyzed the data. "This is impossible. You would destroy your own homeworld." "We would free it," corrected Defense Minister Hye Jin. "Better a free grave than a slave world." The alien admiral's voice rose in what sounded like panic. "You cannot be serious. No species destroys its own birth world. It is madness." "It's not madness," said General Min-soo quietly. "It's mathematics. Your empire is built on conquest and exploitation. Every world you take makes you stronger. But we've shown the galaxy that there's another option. We've proven that you can't conquer what refuses to be conquered." The tactical display showed the reality of the situation. Across the galaxy, rebellions were burning through the Zephyrian Empire like wildfire. 63 star systems had declared independence, following humanity's example of choosing destruction over subjugation. The Empire's economy was collapsing as conquered worlds destroyed their own infrastructure rather than serve their masters. "Your supply lines are broken," Jae-hoon continued. "Your subject populations are in revolt. Your empire is dying, Admiral, and we didn't fire a single shot at your capital world. We won by showing everyone that freedom is possible." Kethvar's image flickered as weapons charged throughout his fleet. "Then we will destroy you quickly and end this rebellion." "Go ahead," Jae-hoon said, his hand moving to rest on a simple red button. "Fire on Earth. But understand that the moment your first weapon strikes our atmosphere, every fusion charge on this planet activates simultaneously. Your fleet will be vaporized along with everything else in this system." The silence stretched for long moments. Through the command center, staff members went about their duties with quiet efficiency. Everyone knew what was at stake. Everyone had made their choice. "You're bluffing," Kethvar said finally, but his voice lacked conviction. In response, Jae-hoon activated a small demonstration charge buried in Earth's moon. The explosion was visible from space, a brief star that lit up the lunar surface before fading to nothing. "That was 1/10,000th of our total capacity," he said simply. "We're not bluffing, Admiral. We're not threatening. We're making you an offer." "What offer?" "Withdraw your fleets. Recognize human independence. Allow the rebelling worlds to choose their own futures. In exchange, we don't turn this entire system into an expanding ball of plasma." Kethvar's tail lashed in frustration. "And if we refuse, then tomorrow travelers in this part of the galaxy will see a new nebula where Earth used to be. And they'll know that some things are worth dying for." The alien admiral stared at the screen for a long moment, his reptilian features unreadable. Behind him, his bridge crew waited for orders that would either end the war or end everything. "Yuda have changed the galaxy," Kethvar said finally. "Whether for better or worse remains to be seen." "That's for history to judge," Jae-hoon replied. "What's your answer, Admiral?" The Zephyrian fleet began to turn away from Earth, and for the first time in galactic history, an empire learned to negotiate with free people as equals. Humanity had won by refusing to lose.